Jesus commands a number of things throughout Scripture that show an element of kingship and authority that are lacking. What are some of the things that Jesus commands that aren't normal recipients of commands from us?
Obviously, Jesus has exercised command over the weather.
Right.
There's a storm, and he says, "Be still," and it becomes still. Jesus commands the fig tree to wither, and it withers. And he has a command over physical nature that we wouldn't. But obviously, some of the Jewish leaders and stuff like that also saw his command over disease, command over unclean spirits, just levels of command that the average person never exercises.
Yeah, yeah. And so if we take some of these, like you mentioned disease, if we take the idea of commanding over blindness, is there any significance to the fact that Jesus heals often by giving a command rather than doing something else? Is there a significant difference in the fact that Jesus commands blindness versus, like, our medical doctors take physical interventions? What are we seeing in that?
That's a good question. It's not lost on me that when Peter wants to walk on water, he asks Jesus to command him to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And there's something in Jesus commanding something that makes it possible. And it's the same way we see in Genesis 1, where God says, "Let there be light," and then it follows, "And there was light."
Mm-hmm.
So there's something in the fact that Jesus' words have creative ability in a way that a doctor's intervention doesn't have that same quality.
I think that when we're kids, we have this fascination with magic, and it's unhealthy. I don't know, but I think kids in general, they have a fascination with this. The idea that you could just say some magic words and something will happen. What's the draw to that? Why do kids get so fascinated by that idea? I mean, Harry Potter was not an international sales phenomenon for no reason.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely the ability to exert a certain power with it, and just the ability to manipulate the world around you. That, truth be told, we don't largely have.
Right. And so there seems to be some kind of a bonus to that, right? So if I'm a great mechanic, there's something neat about being a great mechanic, but it'd be even better if I didn't have to pick up a wrench, if I could just give the command and it would happen. So what is it about magic that makes it so appealing even to adults? Because obviously Wiccan stuff is kind of on the rise again, and is there some kind of relationship between this and what Jesus is showing by commanding these things?
I don't know. That's a great question. I think the appeal is sometimes getting something for nothing, or getting something without the transformation that's usually involved with getting what you're after. But trying to relate that to what Jesus is doing here, I'm not really sure the connection.
So if you're going to learn to play the guitar, let's say, I'm assuming you don't currently do that.
I don't.
What do you need to do to play the guitar?
I need to get a guitar. So I need to find an authority higher than myself to teach me a few things.
Okay.
And then spend a good amount of time with it.
Okay. And so there's an act of submission in learning to play the guitar, would you say?
Absolutely.
Okay. Did you ever play an instrument?
I played trumpet.
Okay. And practice was good times, wasn't it?
Unfortunately, I was one of those kids that didn't practice a lot, which is why I still don't play the trumpet.
Yeah, well, I played the saxophone the same way. So, so what is it that you found unpleasant about learning to play the trumpet? What is it about practice that you found unpleasant?
It's the delayed satisfaction, delayed gratification, if you will. You don't see the payoff for that effort right away. And in fact, oftentimes you don't see it very soon at all.
Yeah.
To get good enough at something, to master something, to the point where it might be recognized, it's often a slow process, especially with like an instrument for me.
Yeah. There's a complete submission of self that has to take place, and we all know that that's unpleasant. Whether it's physical exercise, if you want to get in shape, well, you're going to have to submit yourself. And gaining any kind of skill like playing an instrument or becoming a mechanic, there's a submission of your mind. There's a submission a lot of times of your heart, because it's not what you want to be doing. There's a submission of your body. There's developing the physical dexterity. There's all kinds of things, but that submission, there's a sacrifice that's kind of involved in that. And it seems to me that with this, the appeal of magic to us is that we bypass all of that. And what's interesting is by Jesus healing with his words, I think what you see is an authority there that is kind of unique to him. And why would that be the case?
In his case, he's not actually bypassing anything. We have the hint in Scripture that the glory with which I had with the Father from the foundation of the foundation of the universe, or something along those lines. And Jesus is not cheating the system here in any sense. Jesus created the system, and so this authority is not a contradiction, if you will.
Yeah, there's a previous submission that's already total and complete, but because of that, there's no need for him to. Jesus doesn't have to learn how to do these things. And so what you see in Jesus is the exercise of authority, and it's an authority that is, we'll say, previously earned from the foundation of forever, right, eternity. And because of that, he can exercise pure authority. And we want to kind of jump right to that. And so I think that there's something interesting in there. Now, one of the things that Jesus commands is death. And what does that show us?
It's funny, I remember as a kid thinking, I heard that God was eternal. And they tried to explain to me what that meant. And I remember just thinking, and I couldn't grasp and get my hands around it. And then it dawned on me that everything we encounter in this life has a beginning and an end. And that's why I can't understand it, because I've never encountered anything contrary to that. And so God, who has no beginning and no end, I think it's pretty straightforward that he can have command over death. But I think it's such a different order of magnitude for us, because it is the natural order. Everything we experience will have both a beginning and an end.
Yeah, I think that we can gain some experience with, as a surgeon fixing somebody's sight. We can gain some experience maybe as a culture, society, civilization trying to fiddle with things like weather. But we have no experience with anything other than death, and so it's not something we can kind of even approach at this point. And yet Jesus has such authority over it that he can just command it to cease. He can command it to be reversed, and it happens. And so with Jesus, we're witnessing something that's completely foreign to us as far as the level of authority that he has.